There's never quite been a movie like Avengers Endgame. That's probably because there's never been a movie franchise like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. With over 20 interconnected movies released over the span of a decade, Endgame had ample opportunities to make tons of references and callbacks to a sprawling continuity of characters and plot twists. And while many significant lines of dialogue were pretty easy to spot, like,
"I can do this all day,"
and
"I am Iron Man,"
there were still plenty of other fantastic callbacks that may have flown over your head. Here are some of the small details you might have missed in Avengers Endgame. Beware, gigantic, world-ending spoilers ahead. Throughout the film, we got lots of direct references to previous movies, but some are less obvious than others. For example, when Natasha Romanoff and Clint Barton fly their spaceship to Vormir to retrieve the Soul Stone, one of them quipped to the other, "We're a long way from Budapest." That refers back to a mysterious mission the two of them went on in their shared past that they referred to during the events of the first Avengers film.
Just like Budapest all over again!
You and I remember Budapest very differently.
Meanwhile, just before the undusted heroes all join Cap to fight Thanos and his army toward the end of the film, we hear Falcon jump on the radio to tell his partner, "On your left." That's a callback to when Cap kept lapping Falcon when the two first met as competing joggers at the beginning of Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
On your left. On your left.
On my left. Got it.
Don't you say it. On your left.
Come on!
But the most endearing and heartbreaking callback? When Happy Hogan chats with Morgan after her dad's funeral and asks if she's hungry. She says she wants cheeseburgers, and Happy smiles, saying, "Your dad liked cheeseburgers too." That's a reference back to a scene early on in the very first MCU movie, when Happy and Pepper pick up Tony after his rescue from the 10 Rings, and he demands two things: that Pepper call a press conference, and
"I want an American cheeseburger."
Like father, like daughter. Unless you spent a lot of time watching YouTube videos about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there's a better than decent chance that you have no idea what Avengers Endgame directors Joe and Anthony Russo look like. Well, you actually got a great look at one half of the directing duo. You just might not have realized it at the time. When the movie jumps 5 years forward in time, we catch up with Steve Rogers and his support group in Queens, New York. In that circle of trust is a man who says he and a date spent the whole evening talking and crying. That guy is Joe Russo, the younger half of the directors who also helmed 3 other epic MCU entries: Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Captain America: Civil War, and Avengers: Infinity War. This also wasn't Joe Russo's first time in front of the camera either. He appeared in an episode of Arrested Development, a show for which he and Anthony directed several episodes, as well as in their film You, Me, and Dupree, and all 3 of their other MCU films, though Joe's part as Bert the paparazzi in Infinity War hit the cutting room floor before the movie made it to theaters.
Bert! I see you, Bert! Hold on. Bert, you son of a... Come here, Bert! Come here!
Man, we gotta get him a girlfriend.
Meanwhile, in addition to directing episodes of Arrested Development, the Russos also got behind the lens for several episodes of Dan Harmon's beloved sitcom Community. And that's why 2 familiar faces from that show, Ken Jeong and Yvette Nicole Brown, who played Senor Ben Chang and Shirley Bennett respectively, appear over the running time of Endgame. Jeong shows up early, working the security desk at the storage place containing Ant-Man's van, while Brown appears about halfway through the movie during the jaunt to the S.H.I.E.L.D. base in the 1970s. As the camera pans past Hank Pym's workbench at the S.H.I.E.L.D. base in the 70s, a distinct-looking helmet sitting amid the rest of his stuff stood out. Longtime comic book fans recognized it immediately as the original helmet Pym used in the comic books to chat with his ant buddies. Curious about how the helmet works? Lucky you! Back in Tales to Astonish number 35, where the helmet first appeared, we got a handy-dandy diagram explaining all of the helmet's inner workings. While it stands to reason that a real helmet made for talking to ants would need something a lot more sophisticated than miniaturized electronic equipment, it was still extremely cool to see this important piece of Marvel Comics lore show up on the big screen. Clint Barton's return to the Avengers gave many fans what they'd wanted ever since Infinity War. But Endgame also delivered a slyly concealed reference to the comic book pages that only the most ardent Marvel fans may have noticed. When Scott Lang is freaking out over doing the time travel test with the last remaining Pym particles, Barton quickly volunteers to take his place. The moment makes a lot of sense for his character, as he's got nothing left to lose by this point, and he's ready to do whatever it takes to try and satisfy the Avengers' mission to restore the world. However, if you followed Barton's comic book exploits over the years, you'll know that he has a tendency to reach for the Pym particles when he wants to change things up. In Avengers number 63, Barton got fed up with not being able to contribute as much as his superpowered teammates, so he dropped the Hawkeye shtick, drank some Pym particles, and took the name Goliath. Instead of relying on his superior marksmanship and fighting abilities, Barton got big and smashed stuff. In a movie as gigantic as Avengers Endgame, it'd be truly impossible to catalog every single character's appearance, let alone even recognize a fair number of them in the first place. Case in point, only the most dedicated of Marvel fans may have recognized Howard Stark's butler from Steve and Tony's visit to 1970. But loyal viewers of the late lamented Agent Carter TV series from 2015 to 2016 would have recognized Edwin Jarvis, played by James Darcy, both on the small screen and in Endgame. The movie's writing duo of Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely were executive producers on the show, so they probably had a plan to bring their beloved butler back with this giant MCU swan song for quite a while. Meanwhile, in a truly blink-and-you'll-miss-it moment, none other than Howard the Duck joined all the heroes during the big battle with Thanos and his army. Keep your eyes trained at the bottom right of the screen when all of the resurrected heroes step through Doctor Strange's portals in the third act, specifically when Hope Van Dyne and the Ravagers appear. If you pay attention, you'll catch little Howard running onto the battlefield with a gun in his hands. Believe it or not, this is the third appearance Howard has made in the MCU. He first showed up in the post-credit scenes for Guardians of the Galaxy and then appeared again on the party planet of Contraxia in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, chatting up a nice lady.
You know what they say, you're out of luck until you've gone duck.
The phrase Endgame appeared twice in previous Avengers films. The first time came when Tony Stark was defending his reasons for building Ultron.
We're the Avengers. We can bust arms dealers all the livelong day, but that up there, that's the Endgame.
Then, in Infinity War, Doctor Strange gave Thanos the Time Stone, a move that no one could believe. When Stark asked him why, Strange echoed his earlier Ultron explanation.
We're in the Endgame now.
Endgame, meanwhile, is a phrase that's commonly used in chess to signify that the game is winding down because there aren't very many pieces left on the board. A pretty accurate summation when it comes to the status of the Earth's heroes by the time the film starts up. However, it might not surprise you to know that way back in 1969, the 71st issue of the Avengers comic book had a story called Endgame. The two don't have a ton in common on the surface. The comic book version features characters like the Black Knight and Kang the Conqueror, two guys who have yet to appear in the MCU in any form. But the stories also have more similarities than you might expect. In the comic book, the Avengers fight their way through time, sometimes battling once and future members, to save the planet. Is it worth rereading some random comic book from the late 1960s to get some better insight on one of the most successful blockbuster movies of the last 10 years? Probably not, but the similarities do seem at least a little too close for the name to be a total coincidence. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about Avengers Endgame are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.